Hi, my name is Giselle Artman, and I'm excited to introduce Cory Sakolsky in his dissertation, School Leadership in Crisis, Lessons from the COVID-19 Pandemic. In this research, Cory explores how school leaders navigated the unprecedented challenges brought on by the pandemic, uncovering key insights, strategies, and lessons that can shape the future of educational leadership in times of crisis. Let's dive into the interview.
My name's Cory Sakolsky. I currently am a assistant fifth grade principal at Shaler Area Elementary School in Glenshaw, PA. Prior to that, I was the assistant principal at Highlands Middle School in Natrona Heights, Pennsylvania. And prior to that, I was a social studies teacher in Butler Area School District in Butler, PA. I graduated with my bachelor's from California University of Pennsylvania, and as well as got my master's in administrative leadership there, and currently am finishing my degree in educational leadership with my superintendent letter of eligibility at Youngstown State University. My dissertation is looking at the impact of COVID-19 and remote learning on the roles of principals as supervisors and instructional leaders. I chose something that would keep me, engaged for the long period of the research that I was doing, but also something that I could put to action once I completed the research. Being a school administrator and transitioning to that role while in the pandemic, I was able to see it from the teaching perspective, but also see it as an administrator and really understanding what the nuances that were expected of all people in education during that time period. So the goal for me was to pick something for my dissertation that, like I said, was engaging enough for me to stay on top of it and want to continue to do the research, but also have a purpose and be able to use it for an impactful piece after I'm done with the research. I think the experiences that I had personally, where I immediately started to see students that had some disproportionalities where, low-income communities or unavailable resources were getting truly lost. The experience as a teacher to see students who were on Zoom meetings feeding their infant siblings, you could tell that their hygiene, that their house was kind of in disarray, it was in chaos, they weren't taking care of themselves, and really seeing that. And also colleagues of mine who were burning out, who needed to take leaves of absence, were unable to do the work they needed to do with all of the chaos ensuing. It just seemed like something that was such a phenomenal event where we were able to get a lot of information and learn from it and prepare, hopefully never to do it again or handle it again, but be prepared for really any crises that comes up. For me, it was just such an important piece to dive into. It's current. We're still talking about it. I believe at this time it's a 5-year anniversary of it. And those 5 years have gone really fast. But there are a lot of things that were decided during that pandemic that are still impacting education today. I had mentioned in my dissertation that ESSER funds, the emergency response funds that were given for all schools, have now been stopped. So those schools that took that funding to help, increase security measures or buy medical equipment to keep the masking or distancing or, cameras, whatever it may be, that's all stopped. So now what are their sustainability plans? What's the next step for them? I just think there's so much information in school operational pieces in that and educational leadership that if we could peel back the layers and really see where those improvements can be for now and also for the future. What I realized in a lot of the research, a lot of the interviewing was everybody needed something different, whether it would be support to work with technology, emotional support, understanding their job. There were a lot of teachers during that time period that came in and were hired brand new after graduating from school and didn't do student teaching, which was such a component that really separated those who wanted to get in the field and those who didn't. It was a 15-week expectation for most, where you go in and you're actually the teacher and you're learning all of those things. And when COVID hit and universities were no longer granted those partnerships, there was a wave of new teachers that were hired that never had that experience, and their first experience was legit on-the-job training. And that created a lot of difficulties, and that created a need for high-end coaching. It had a lot of veteran teachers who were uncomfortable supporting a new teacher that really didn't have the basic foundation that a lot of other teachers did. And on the other end, newer teachers were coming with much more technological awareness, their ability to navigate the apps quickly and learn how to use the interfaces. They were almost more supportive to veteran staff and helping teach them. So, the biggest thing I found in the research was the people that you expected to be the experts weren't necessarily the experts in all of those areas. And those that you needed to lean on or always leaned on before the pandemic hit may not have been the people you could lean on during. And that was such a eye-opening thing. One of my questions was, what was a big thing in your practice that has changed? And one of the interviewees said that they quit their job and they left education following that time period. Once COVID ended, they didn't want to be a principal anymore, and they decided to step back and leave education completely. And another stepped back and wanted to go back to the classroom. It was such a difficult time. Nobody was prepared for it. Nobody was trained for it. And for me, it was really, like I said, getting those perspectives and those experiences. So when the time comes for any crisis that pops up, we're able to really look at what we learned from that and say, if we could handle something that comes once every 100 years, we should be able to handle just about anything else. No matter what, at the end of the day, we still want to educate all of our students. We want to make sure we're not losing them. We're not letting them go out. I would look to create opportunities for feedback from the community, consistent check-ins. If you're struggling, here's who you can reach out to, and we'll connect you with servicing that can help you. If you don't have Wi-Fi and I send you an email, you're not going to get that. So is there a way that we can send out something in the mail and say, hey, are you out there? Have you gotten our emails? If you have, respond to this survey. So we can start to check in on the people that are out there. I think a big thing was we relied so heavily on technology, but again, like I stated, there are people out there that aren't tech savvy or don't have access. So how are you reaching them? And yes, it's expensive to send out mailers and do things like that. But sometimes there are people, we have grandparents that are guardians of children that have to look out for them. And if they're not carrying their cell phone and checking their school information system for what their grades are, their attendance, there's paper, pencil, or paper copies of things that we need to send. I would recommend that moving forward, you always look at the technology savvy side of it, but also what is the traditional side of it, that if people aren't invested in the technology or truly don't have the access to it or the desire for it, how are you reaching them? And I would shape my policies around that with the goal to basically ensure that we meet everybody and we meet everybody at where they need to be met. I do think that this is an area that should not be put behind us because of, I would say, all the negativity. I think there are a lot of positives that we got out of COVID. I think it really stressed the system of what education looks like in the United States and in the world. We were able to see what other countries did. I mentioned in my presentation, and I mentioned even in my defense, that the rest of the world shut down businesses so they could keep schools open and to educate their students, where the United States shut down schools so they could keep their businesses operating. And we've learned from that. So I think a big key to this is continue to talk about it, continue to learn from it, ask questions, everybody who has been alive, older than I would say the age of 5 in the last 5 years. There's so many people to hear their experiences from. I think the more we talk about it, the more we obtain those experiences, the better we can change, one, how we behave in society in general and the practices we do there, but that we can improve our overall educational outlook on things and understanding where our priorities are.